What's up, and welcome to the No Bullshit Manifestation Show. I'm your host, Kat Kozad, manifestation expert, money mindset and fulfillment coach, and multiple six-figure entrepreneur. Come sit with me while I spill the real tea on what it's like to practice using intentional manifestation, demystify all of the woo-woo and confusing bullshit that comes along with creating the life of your dreams, and give you a realistic view of what it's like to be on a personal, spiritual, and professional growth journey. The goal of this podcast is to support and guide you towards manifesting all of your dreams, shed light on the things that people are too scared to talk about, and encourage you to become the person who gets to have it all, be it all, and do it all. I am so happy you are here. Let's fucking do this thing. What's up, loves? Welcome back to another episode of the No Bullshit Manifestation Show. Today's episode is questionably the most important episode for you when it comes to your health. And this has been one of the most powerful conversations that I have had on the podcast, as well as one of the most powerful things that has been changing my life recently. And I was so fortunate to bring Julia Otest onto the podcast to talk with all of you today about chronic inflammation, gut health, and life transformation, because there is so much out there in terms of false information when it comes to health, especially like in Western cultures and what we are taught about health and how it truly is making us sicker. And this is something that I had been experiencing in my own life prior to being connected with Julia, and the two of us being able to hop on a call and have a conversation. A little bit of context around that is something that I have struggled with since the age of 16 is chronic acne. And it's come and gone in waves of being like really bad, getting a little bit better, but constantly something that I have really struggled with, and something that really broke out once I moved to New York. And instead of taking birth control or different medicines that the doctors and dermatologists would typically recommend, which I've done in the past, which would work for a short amount of time because it's essentially a Band-Aid and never truly got to the root and the cause of why I was experiencing it in the first place. I wanted to heal naturally this time. And this, luckily, is a manifestation that showed up in my life. I was doing some different research around it, but none of the ways that they were suggesting to get the acne to go away felt really aligned to me. And I set the intention for some sort of level of awareness to show up in my life, something to show up and help me on this journey. And Julia and I had been connected for quite some time through a mutual friend, but never truly got to speak with each other or understand what the other one did. And when I got reconnected with Julia and was listening to her talk on a training about chronic inflammation and diet and the way that we are hurting our bodies, every single thing that she was saying resonated with me. It literally felt as though the universe was placing the answer to my prayers in my lap, and it was in the form of Julia and her program, which I have now been a part of for a little over a week. I've been making a few diet changes and lifestyle changes over the past 3 weeks, and I can say that my skin has completely cleared up. It is wild looking at a photo of myself from 4 weeks ago versus where I'm at right now, and just notice that not only has my acne completely gone away, but also just my face is so much less bloated. My body isn't bloated. I feel so much happier and healthier inside of my body. And once again, like I said, this is questionably one of the most important things that you could listen to pertaining to your health. So anybody who is interested in connecting with Julia, learning more about what she does, becoming a part of her program, please check out the show notes down below. I cannot recommend this program enough. And this is something that I think everybody honestly needs. And if you want to kickstart that journey and be a part of Julia's world, please connect with her. Please check out the show notes down below. This is truly, truly like something that I have now found to be so important in my life, and obviously wish I would have found at an earlier time, but everything happens in divine timing. So just a little bit about Julia. So Julia is a gut health expert and transformation coach. She helps people with chronic illnesses and childhood trauma heal their gut, mindset, emotional attachment to food, and limiting beliefs. She is a no diets, no supplements, no bullshit kind of girl. She is the real fucking deal, and she is looking to optimize anybody with their health so that they can live their happiest, healthiest life. And you will hear that in the way that she shares this information in this podcast episode. She's a no bullshit kind of girl just like me. So if you listen to this podcast and you love the way that I approach things from this no bullshit kind of perspective, Julia is the exact same way. And yeah, I can't emphasize enough how important this episode is. So without a further ado, we're going to get into the show, and here is Miss Julia. Alrighty, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the No Bullshit Manifestation Show. Today we have Julia Otest. She is a gut health expert and transformation coach. And the two of us have been connected for a while over social media. And I've just been so excited to bring her onto the show because our health has so much to do with our manifestations. So Julia, thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Yeah, I'm so excited to finally do this after all our chats.
Yay. Cool. So let's kick this off with your story. Like, what has led you to where you are today, who you are today, and doing the work that you do?
Yeah, so it's funny how life works out. I basically am in the niche I'm in now, in the field I'm in now, because I got super sick myself. And most people, myself included, put off health until we're forced to deal with it. So that was my story too. So about 4 years ago, maybe 4.5, I got super duper sick. I just got hives all over my body one day and didn't know why. I did the full round of doctors, testing, medications, allergists, everything, skin doctors, and no one could help me. And actually all the medications were making me worse. So it wasn't addressing my issue. So after 1.5 years of like going to different doctors, spending so much money, I spent probably around $100,000 just like doing the normal rounds, trying to get better. And it was so debilitating. I was having panic attacks. I mean, it was burning my skin. I was getting swelling in random places. So super debilitating. I couldn't really work or be social. And I felt like a monster because my skin was just awful and I felt awful. So after 1.5 years of that, I was like, well, either this is my life now, which is what all the doctors were saying, or I have to find a way out because like, I really can't be human this way. Like I can't live in this body this way. And so I started just doing a ton of research, trying to figure out what was the root cause of what was happening to my body. Because I'd always been pretty healthy. I'd always worked out. I always tried to eat healthy. So I didn't really know what was causing this. I didn't have any history of illness. My family didn't. So, long story short, like I did all this research. I tried every single diet out there, like literally every diet possible. And I started to heal. And I realized it was a gut issue. And I self-diagnosed, actually. I started listening to more holistic health doctors and like finding them online and trying their stuff. And so I found a naturopath and self-diagnosed with SIBO, which is small intestine bacterial overgrowth, which is actually, the statistic is something like 85% of people who have IBS, which is not a real disease, have SIBO, but doctors won't diagnose SIBO. So doctors are like heavily uneducated around gut health in general and nutrition. So once I self-diagnosed, I started to be able to heal that, but I also had at that point realized what was actually inflammatory in terms of nutrition in my diet. And so I started healing myself. My husband at the time also was sick with some kind of gut disease, so I started healing him. People around me started noticing, like, I looked younger, I had more energy, I lost like 45 pounds. I think just everything was improving around my health. So people started asking me for help. So it was this natural progression into helping other people. And I started working with one-on-one clients. And then I actually created a program because I realized that it was, you know, how we're taught that like you're different, you have your own biology, like what you need different diets, you need different healthcare. Like that's not true. And there's all these different diseases and specialists and medications, and all of that is just, from what I found, one big lie. And we're all human. We function the same things inflame us from the inside. The disease is stemming from that. So I was able to like put it all together into one thing that works consistently for every single person who does it, because once you realize like this is what it is, this is what's killing you from the inside, like it's actually really fast and easy to heal, as you've experienced a little bit of in the last couple of weeks. Yeah.
Totally. I love that. There's so many things in that with your experience that stand out to me. One of them being that, like, I think a lot of the times people don't prioritize, like you said, prioritize their health until they're literally forced to. And then you are in this position of spending $100,000 in order to try and figure out what it was, and still ultimately feeling though like you weren't getting the solution that you wanted, when in reality there's an alternative for us to get to this place of like never having to reach that point. And being raised in a society that like doesn't necessarily teach us health, just like you were saying a second ago, is like in the past few weeks, I've removed so many different inflammatory foods from my diet and I feel like a completely different woman. Like I look like a different woman. And it's been such a powerful experience to see. So tell me, like, your lifestyle leading up to this place of getting sick, like what was the norm for you? Like what were the kinds of foods that you were eating? What were the like lifestyle choices that you were making?
Yeah, I mean, it was really standard, and I followed all the normative myths of our society around like calories in, calories out, constantly pushing yourself in terms of physical exercise. Carbs are bad, like all what you'd expect is what's normalized. But the thing is, like, all of those are untrue. So I always like weighed more than I wanted. I had stubborn weight I couldn't get rid of. I was always exhausted. I would be like falling asleep after lunch, you know, living on coffee like a lot of people do, living on those highs and lows, and then escaping, using food as an emotional escape, using alcohol as an emotional escape. So everything you'd expect, what's normalized in our culture, and not understanding that feeling exhausted or having constant bloat or stomach aches, or I had migraines, chronic migraines, like all of these things, anxiety, they're all actually gut health issues stemming from the food you're eating and the lack of meeting emotional needs and being taught from a young age to use food as an escape. So that those two things, that combination of inflammatory foods plus like not meeting emotional needs and the excess stress coming from that, because we don't have the tools to meet our emotional needs, we're just taught to satiate ourselves through food or other like activities that are not very healthy. So that combination obviously leads to this disease, this just normalized state of disease where we're just taught, you have a stomach ache, you know, take some Pepto-Bismol, you have a headache, take some ibuprofen, and disease is so normalized. Like there's even, this kills me, there's accounts, I'm sure you've seen them on Instagram, that normalize bloat, and they're like, you know, I wake up flat and then by the evening I'm like 9 months pregnant, and they're like, it's beautiful. And it's really hard for me to process that because it's disease. It's your body literally communicating with you, telling you something is really wrong and we need to fix this before it becomes worse and worse and worse, because you can't put a Band-Aid on that and expect to feel better in the future. But it's so normalized to choose current experience over valuing long-term health. It's so normalized to, again, use food as an emotional escape. So that was a very long-winded answer, but it was like what you'd expect. I wasn't this constant state of sickness, this normalized state of sickness that everyone experiences. I love having the platform to tell people that you don't have to feel that way. And as you've been experiencing, like you really don't, and it really heals fast. Once you remove the things that are hurting you, your body's like, thank God, like we're actually fine now, and it doesn't have to overcompensate for this constant growth of inflammation internally. And then it can use the resources to think better, so you don't have brain fog, to digest, so you don't have bloat, like all those resources being used to try to overcompensate for the chronic inflammation are actually used to improve your skin or like look younger, all these things that we want, that we've been taught to like take pills for and take topicals for. You can't put a Band-Aid to heal a core issue. That's like one of the biggest things I learned that I teach.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh God. It's so powerful listening to you talk, because I can imagine almost everybody, if not everybody listening to this podcast, will resonate with this. That like everybody who is hearing this is like, whoa, it's not normal to be bloated. It's not normal to have acne. It's not normal to feel like I have brain fog and I'm constantly tired and need caffeine to deal with my day or like get through my day. And one of the things that really stood out to me when we were first introduced to each other was listening to you talk about how we meet our emotional needs with eating, and how that manifests from like childhood experiences and what we are taught to do at a super young age. So for our listeners, like, can you explain why we emotionally eat and like how that manifests from our childhood experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is one of those things that's so automated and subconscious and internal for people. And they just act based on like habit and based on what you're taught and programmed. And once you realize it, it's such an amazing journey to start healing it. But basically what happens when you're a little kid is that sugar especially, but food in general, is associated with love, with affection, with attention. For example, like starting from your first birthday, right? The smash cake, you have a cake every year on your birthday. And for a lot of people, birthday is the only time that they actually get a lot of attention and love coming in from family and friends, right? We celebrate. And then from then on, like every celebration has to do with sugar, has to do with booze, has to do with like really unhealthy foods. And then there's also the normalization of using food as an escape. For example, I don't know where this started, but we're all taught like someone breaks up with you, eat ice cream and like watch TV, right? Watch a romantic movie. Like, why is ice cream? Ice cream is so inflammatory. And yet like we're just programmed over and over and over from all the media, from our parents, from everything we see in our culture, to use food as an emotional escape rather than, we don't even know what our emotional needs are at that point. So I talk a lot about really removing nutrition from emotional needs, because the reason like people are so addicted to these foods, and there's physical and emotional addiction, but if you talk to people, I hear this constantly, like, I can't live without my wine, I can't live without my cheese, like I could never live without like sugar, right? And it's so overwhelming. But the reason it's overwhelming isn't even the physical addiction, it's that people think that they get some kind of love from these foods. And if you start to dig deeper, you can tell like each person has their own story, but I've had clients who like their dad, when they were a kid, used to take them to a coffee shop, and that was the only time they saw him because he worked so much. And then so now they associate coffee with this love and affection, and everyone has this version of a story, or like, you know, grandma used to make apple pie, and that's the love and affection, right? And so instead of understanding that the underlying need is like you're lonely and you want a hug, or like you're sad and you want to talk to someone, or like you're just exhausted and you need to rest and self-care. Instead, we're programmed to use food because it gives us a physical dopamine boost. So you feel happy, which is not a real happiness. Like I'm using air quotes, happy. But it is a chemical boost to your brain, but you also feel this associated love. But then at the end, because you know that this food is bad and you end up feeling physically worse, there's so much guilt trapped in there. And so it's this never ending downward spiral of dissociating with your body because it hurts, and you know subconsciously you're hurting it, and feeling physically worse and feeling so much guilt because at the same time that the media tells us to eat this stuff, it's also programming us to feel like it's our fault, that we're sick, that we're fat, that we're whatever, right? And so there's just these mixed messages and so much guilt, and it's a mess. But it's once you start to separate nutrition from emotions and realize you can meet your emotional needs separately, and you can eat nutrition that makes you feel better, like it becomes an upward spiral, and you start feeling better, and you start like self-love. People think, oh, if I like lose 20 pounds, I'll love myself. But everyone has a story of like, when I was in high school, I looked perfect and I still didn't love myself. So self-love has nothing to do with even how you look. It has to do with the everyday choices you're making for yourself. And when on a subconscious level, you know that you're constantly hurting yourself and you're seeing it played out physically too, and emotionally and mentally, like there's no way you can love your body. You end up dissociating. And that's where this break in self-love stems from.
Yeah.
Really long answer.
I love it. No, it's so true. And one of the things, another thing that you've said that really stood out to me is like giving yourself cake or ice cream or alcohol or like whatever it is at the end of the day for a treat, like isn't a treat, because you're making yourself sicker every single time that you do it. So, for somebody who's in this position of like, but that is my treat. And like, what is a treat to me if I don't have my cheese, my wine, my ice cream, my cake, whatever it is? Like, what's your suggestion for that person?
Yeah. So like I mentioned, it's a physical addiction and an emotional escape. So you kind of have to address both. So what I recommend is really starting to look at the emotional need that you're having when you need this food, right? So why do you need wine to feel relaxed? Or why do you need, cake or ice cream or sugar or whatever to like feel happy when you're sad? What is the actual deeper emotional need? Do you need a hug? Are you lonely? Are you sad? Like name the emotions, start to get comfortable using like adjectives to actually name your emotion. And then how do you meet your emotion in a healthier way? Like, can you get a hug from your partner? Can you call a friend and have a conversation? Can you take a bath? Can you go for a walk? Like whatever it is, like once you consistently break that habit and start creating a new habit, that's the other thing is people think this will be hard forever. They're like, oh, I can't choose this lifestyle. I can't deprive myself forever. And deprivation doesn't work. That's not the point. The point is that you're habituated into autopilot on these bad decisions and in these instant gratification decisions when you know at the end it makes you feel worse. So it's really about replacing habits. And the more you do it, the easier it gets, getting down to what the emotional need is. You can also ask yourself the question, like, why does this make me, why do I feel unsafe right now? Why do I feel uncomfortable right now? Try to get to the root of like, what did, this is like what I do in my program, but you can do it kind of yourself too if you journal, like what is the deeper meaning of this food? Like what do I associate it with? What happened in my childhood around this food? Or maybe like if it's alcohol, it happened later on in life, but like try to figure out like what's actually happening deeper emotionally. Because once you start meeting your emotional needs, again, you won't be so reliant on these foods. But I hear this fear all the time where you can tell it's emotional because people are literally like, I can't live without it. Like, I can't do this. And it's crazy to hear someone's, it's like saying I can't live without, I don't know, like cutting myself every day. Like you're literally killing yourself. And so, when someone's like, especially I see some people being like, okay, well, I'll do your program, but can I do this? Like the negotiating, it's like a freaking drug addict, right? They're like, oh, okay, well, I'll do this, but like, can I just still eat some sugar? And you're like, sugar is killing you. Like, why do you need it so much? So really figuring out like, what is the actual need there? Because it's not sugar. I promise it's not sugar. Food will never heal you emotionally. It just, but that physical addiction is real too, especially to sugar, dairy, alcohol. Those are really addictive substances. There's a rat study that I like to mention where rats will choose sugar over cocaine. I think I mentioned that to you, which is insane, right? They'll literally choose sugar over cocaine. It's that addictive. So that also that detox has to happen. And there's real detox symptoms too. Like people get headaches, they'll feel nauseous. Did you experience it? You're like,
oh my God, I had like the worst headaches ever. And I was like, I know this is going to be so worth it, but like, can I get to the other side?
But it didn't take that long, right?
No, it took like maybe a day and a half, maybe 2 days of like pretty intense headaches to get to the other side of it, because it's a physical addiction, just like you're mentioning.
Yeah, same with coffee. Like if you're actually addicted to the stuff, energy drinks like soda, you might have symptoms. I always tell that people, but the longest they'll last in my experience, it's usually a couple of days, maybe 2 weeks. And then if you think about the reality of the situation, which we're all kind of programmed to think short term, right? Sorry, there's an ambulance.
So good.
But if you think about the reality situation, like 2 weeks, potentially, maybe a couple of days of pain for like a lifetime of feeling amazing. Like, isn't it so worth it? Because it's not difficult forever. Once you heal emotionally and you get over that addiction detox, like you feel amazing. I don't know if I can swear in your podcast. I keep wanting to. Yeah, okay.
Absolutely. This is the No Bullshit Manifestation Show. You can fucking swear all you want.
I swear a lot. Yeah. So you feel fucking amazing. And just like, yeah, that's like what I like to tell people is like, it's not hard forever. It's just, you're so overwhelmed at the idea of it because you're thinking you're going to be depriving yourself forever. But I constantly, like my students are constantly coming to me being like I just had a student who was like, oh yeah, my kids just, got all the Halloween candy. And for the first time in my life, I didn't want it. Or like someone else was like, my coworkers brought donuts to work and I didn't want them. And I just had someone celebrating Thanksgiving with their family. And she was like, I made my own meal and I was so happy with it. And they were pressuring me, but I didn't want it because I know how it makes me feel afterwards. And it's really that experience, which you're having now too, of like, once you feel even a little bit of how much better you are without those toxic things in your system, like you can't really go back. And if you do, once you lower the chronic inflammation in your body, you'll feel the effects of this stuff to the full extent. Because right now your body's numb from dissociating from high levels of chronic inflammation. So once you detox, you can feel the full effects. If you have like a coffee or some sugar or dairy, you're going to feel like shit for like maybe a day or two. And then it just becomes not worth it, like on all levels.
Yeah, y'all. Julia and I had a conversation like 2 weeks ago, and since then I've changed so much in my diet and my lifestyle, and literally like not being bloated at the end of the day, I didn't realize was a thing. And like being able to wear my jeans, wear like bodysuits and feel so sexy in them and like feel so fucking good is like, it blows my mind thinking about how, like you've been saying, all of this stuff is just normalized. Like we are literally born and bred into a society of like making ourselves sick instead of aligning with our health and choosing that like we are the one who is in charge of that. And we are the ones who can like actually be so much happier and healthier by shifting the relationship with these different things that are just like so a part of our like society, part of our reality.
Yeah. And it feels so good on every level. Like it's so holistic. It's physical, but it's also emotional and mental, because like we talked a tiny bit about gut health, or we haven't really yet, but like your gut directly impacts your emotional and mental health too, which is something people don't realize. Like anxiety, depression, ADHD, like they're all directly connected to gut health. And that's just not information that's out there.
Totally. Yeah. So let's go there. Like, I'm sure majority of the listeners have also heard this at some point, is like the gut is the second brain. And being in this sort of space, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably here for mindset in some sort of way. So what does that mean? And just like all of those things that you were saying a second ago, how does our gut health impact our mental health and our mindset?
Yeah. So like on a biological level, You can read, like, this information is out there, so I'll just touch on it briefly. But basically, like, when you're born, your gut, like when you're forming, not when you're born, when you're forming, like your gut and your nervous system and brain, they're like all the same thing, and then they separate. But the same neurons that are in your brain are also in your gut. Your gut actually has memory, and it connects directly and speaks directly to your brain. So the central nervous system is directly connected to your gut. And so your gut health, that's also like the only place that we have nutrition coming in, right? Nutrition is the only thing we have for energy. So we literally can't function without food. So the gut is like the place where we get our energy from, and it dissipates into the rest of the body. So the inflammation that sits there creates disease everywhere else. So we're taught that there's all these different diseases. And all these different diseases that have no cures, like fibromyalgia and like cancer, like heart disease, gum disease, like diabetes, like everything's separate, and there's a separate, specialist for every part of your body. And but the thing is, your body is like one system, and everything affects everything else, and it all starts in the gut. And same with like what we were just talking about in terms of mental and emotional health, like anxiety, depression, ADHD, they're all scientifically correlated to inflammation in the gut. Like, this info is out there, and I won't go into this too deeply, but the reason that we're really not taught this is because if you were to heal, we're a consumerist country, right? We're a consumerist culture. And so we're basically, everything is created, food, medicine, everything, it's all a business. And so there'd be no money in actually healing people. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist. There's actually information and studies done on this, even insofar as like food companies will put sugar into foods unnecessarily because it's an addictive substance. So to get you to continue to buy their product. And medicines, like, people are always like, what medications, what supplements did you recommend? But this is the wrong mindset, because supplements, again, is just putting a Band-Aid. We're taught to always put a Band-Aid, but never heal the core issue. Like, no supplement or medication will ever make you feel better. And in fact, it's making you more sick, because you're continuing the behaviors that are killing you from the inside out, but you're just masking the symptoms. And if you start looking into this deeper, like, medications have so many side effects. And the reason is that there's no way they're not healing you. They're just making you sicker. And so there's no way to like mess with one part of the system without messing with the whole system. And the side effects are usually worse than the symptoms you're experiencing anyway. Like, they're crazy. But I'm kind of getting off of your question, but the thing is, like, everything's connected, and you can't really escape that. You have to change your whole mindset around health, well-being, nutrition, everything, because otherwise, I talk to so many people who have been in this loop of medical care that's just making them more and more sick, and then doctors revert to surgery, and because they don't have any other solutions for you. And once you start removing organs, like, it's really hard for your body to function correctly. Like, this is really serious stuff. And so masking symptoms with medications, supplements, things like over-the-counter meds, like, you're just making yourself more and more sick. And that's something that I really try to get people to understand. So that makes sense. I jumped around a lot.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. And it is, once again, it's just like so important to pay attention to, because I know a lot of people, and like, I feel as though this is something we are talking about, is like, in my experience, is like, I've done so much work in all of these other areas of my life, and I got my life to a certain level of like success and happiness and love and all of the different things. But it always felt as like there's still this like thing that was dragging me back, and like thing that had been holding me into a place that wasn't necessarily serving me. And I think that this is it. And for so many of the people that are listening too, because it's just part of our culture. It's just part of the norm. And especially like with these big medicine companies and all the different things. I'm not a conspiracy theorist either. It's just like, is the actual reality of like our society. And when we can wake the fuck up to all of these different things and actually put our health in all ways, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, in like the first seat, then all of this can start to actually change for the people who want that change and want that reality for themselves. What has been your experience like with what's like the most challenging thing that you've gone through to get to this other side? Like when you were in that place of being so sick, feeling so sick, and getting to where you are now, like what do you feel like was the most challenging thing mentally that you had to go through to get to this place of like, okay, this is the life that I'm choosing for myself?
Yeah, I think the hardest thing, and I hear this a lot from others too, but the hardest thing for me was like really admitting and coming to terms with the fact that we've really been lied to our whole lives, and that this medical system, health system, like health, like what do you call it? Like marketplace around health foods and everything and supplements, it's really not there to heal us. And that it's actually a really, really simple solution. As you've been experiencing, like the physical part heals so fast. I've helped people heal in under 2 months, which is the length of my program. Usually takes 2 to 4 weeks. They've healed like arthritis. Like this one woman had arthritis for 8 years. She was on 6 different medications for pain, gone. Pain goes away. Bloat goes away. IBS, like not a real thing. All of these things are so easy to fix. And that's like the hardest thing I think to overcome mentally and emotionally is like, I've been sick for no reason. And some people are sick for so many years and they're just told over and over, there's no way you can heal your body. And I've actually come across people who can't even make that shift because they've taken on the identity of an illness warrior. And I'm sure you've seen that. That's like all over social media. And once you're in this identity of like fighting this illness, and illness is the bad guy, and you know you're never going to get better and you can't heal, so you're the strong warrior, like that's a really bad place to be. Because at that point, you can't even shift into, oh shit, like I can actually heal and feel good. And it's really easy. And that's really hard to come into that space if you've been sick for so long and told there's no cure. So I think that shift and recognizing that, like, unfortunately, like the people that are supposed to help you are actually not helping you. And I'm not saying doctors are evil. I'm just saying they're uneducated. Like the whole system's broken. So the stuff they're taught, sure, it's great if you break a leg, like surgery, you know, you need like release something cut out fast. Like, yes, absolutely. Like dire need, they're great. But to actually heal or do anything preventative or long-term, like they're uneducated. And the solutions they have are really actually making you sicker. Coming to terms with that is really hard for people in my experience, or even just believing, because there's also so many lies out there. There's all these, I talk to people all the time who are like, I didn't even want to talk to you at first. I just been following you forever, but like, I just don't believe anything anymore because there's all these like, you know, slim teas and all these like instant fixes to like, sorry, there's been a car that's just been doing that all day and yesterday. Anyway, I'll just talk over it. So yeah, there's all these like wacky things on the internet, especially, but even in medicine, where like they're supposed to fix you fast, but they actually make you more sick. And everyone's had the experiences of diets or like, supplements that have just been really negative. So also shifting the mindset that you can heal and you can heal quickly. That's really hard for people to understand. And you, again, have experienced the last couple of weeks, like how quickly your body actually heals. Like your body fucking wants to heal. Your body's like, let's fucking do this as soon as you give it the opportunity, because your natural state, as I'm sure you teach also in manifestation, is like your natural state is actually feeling good. Like that's what you want. That's what your body wants. That's what your mind wants. And so once you lift this burden of chronic inflammation, your body's like, we're good. Like the pain's gone. All these like things that are unhealable just go away.
Totally. Mm-hmm. I love this. And guys, if you're listening to this and this triggers you, it should. Like if this triggers you, it means that this is something that actually resonates inside of you that needs healing. And just like Julia said, with some of the people that have reached out to you, if like, I didn't even want to reach out to you, it's like, pay attention to like what she has to say and what she's doing. Because if you struggle with any of these different things, IBS, anxiety, inflammation in any sort of way, arthritis, like you've been saying, is like any of these different things, any different diseases that have just been deemed as normal in your life, they don't have to be normal.
Mm-hmm.
And so tagging along with that, do you feel as though there's like any other major misconceptions that like you see around health and the way that our society perceives health?
There's so many.
Yeah.
Honestly, like half my course is just reprogramming, re-education, because if you even look historically, the problem is we're so blind. Like history repeats itself. Like all this information's out there. It's just that we don't know where to look or how to look. There's too much, there's conflicting information. But like the reason that food is as shitty today as it is, and we're in this consumer culture around inflammatory food, is like in the Industrial Revolution, it stopped being quality and it started being quantity. And we needed that at that time because of the war and food shortages. But then it became like overconsumption. And that's actually the time when being fat became morally wrong as well. It's like really interesting. I teach all this in my course. Like being fat is morally wrong right now. And it hasn't always been that way. It's actually really new, right? Mm-hmm. This like, I don't know what to call it. This like hatred or like, yeah, moral thing around fat. Very new. So some of the more common misconceptions, I'll just name a couple, but like I mentioned, the demonization of carbs. Like everyone's like, oh my God, okay, wait, can I just say that keto, if you're doing keto, please stop. Keto will literally kill you. The point of keto is that it's a medical diet that was meant for people with severe cancer that had no other option. And it's a way to shock your system out of what it's used to. So if you're doing keto, it's gonna make you feel awful. You will lose weight, but it's not worth it. It's so unhealthy. I come across one of my first clients ever was this woman who she couldn't sleep at night. She'd been doing keto for I think like 4 or 5 months. She couldn't sleep at night because her acid reflux was so severe that it would actually like choke her to fall asleep. And then she had anxiety and panic attacks around food because of the severity of her reaction to food. So that's keto. And we healed that within 2 months. So your body doesn't want that, don't do keto. But also things like, all the different diets that are out there. Dieting in general is something that helps you lose weight. Like actually most people are under eating. And I think you and I talked about this, like starvation mode. That's something I teach a lot of people. If your body thinks you're not getting enough nutrition, it's actually going to hold on to fat. So it does the opposite of what you want. And it shuts down processes that it deems unnecessary. And that's why you're exhausted. And that's why you're not digesting well, because you're literally starving yourself. And calories in, calories out, like if you start thinking about numbers, that doesn't even make sense, because to work off like the 2,000 or whatever calories you eat in a day, you literally have to be working out for 24 hours a day. This whole normalization of like coffee and these uppers and downers, like coffee, alcohol, right? Coffee to wake up, alcohol to relax is really off. Not eating at certain times because it'll make you fat is completely wrong. You can eat whenever you want. In fact, when you're so dissociated from your body, you're not hearing its signals, but your body naturally tells you when you're hungry, when you're full. And so this idea of counting shit like macros and calories and steps, it actually fucks you up in the head, and it does nothing to help you be healthier. I've met so many people with eating disorders because this is the way that we're programmed from a young age, right? So pretty much everything you've ever been taught about health, nutrition, and fitness is wrong. Like this obsession with cardio is really wrong. Cardio won't give you the body you want. In fact, it'll hurt you. There's this thing called adrenal fatigue where cardio is stress. So if you're already stressed and your body's already inflamed, and then you add cardio and you feel sick after you work out because we're pushed these crazy like spinning workouts and HIIT workouts, like you're actually hurting yourself more. And again, your body's shutting down. Adrenal fatigue is really hard to recover from. And what it does is it actually your body holds on to fat. You get super exhausted. So you're actually making yourself sicker with all of these cultural norms around diet, nutrition, and fitness. I used to do like a hour and a half webinar just going through fact and fiction around this stuff. So there's like endless things.
Yeah. And so with all of those different things and like talking of the solution of like what you found for everybody that works on like a very, very base level, because I know you have such an incredible program that we can talk about in just a minute. But what is the solution? What are the foods that like people need to cut out?
The solution is literally lowering chronic inflammation in your body. And it's literally that simple. That is what's killing you. That's what's causing every single disease you have. Other than like if you got bit by a tick, obviously, like you're not, it's not from chronic inflammation. But the interesting thing is, I want to just note this because people don't realize this. Whenever it's an external source of pain, the reason like your experience will be so much worse. Like for example, COVID, the reason that people have it pop up in different places is where they already have chronic inflammation.
Ooh.
Is insane?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so people aren't talking about this, but the reason people have these long-term symptoms is because they're already so chronically inflamed. It's the same with low immunity. Like if you get sick a lot, it's because your body can't handle it. Your body is like a glass, and once it's filled with inflammation, chronic inflammation, that's when you start getting symptoms and severe disease. But anything external too, like why do some people get sick from some things and some people don't? Because if you have high level of chronic inflammation, it literally takes nothing for your body to jump over the edge of I'm sick as fuck, because your cup is just filled with inflammation. And inflammation is the root of disease. If you literally Google any disease, you'll see a mention of inflammation. And we've been programmed that inflammation is a symptom, but inflammation is actually the root cause. And it stems from food, and it stems from excess stress from both exercising, but also not meeting your emotional needs. So those are like the three things really that are causing your sickness. Yeah.
Amazing. So much information in this episode. It is fucking incredible. So one last question for you before we talk about where people can find you is like anybody who's resonating with this message right now, what's your like words of wisdom for them?
Yeah. I like thought about this and wrote down a couple because I knew this was coming and I wanted to make it valuable. The primary thing I want to say is kind of what you said. We're taught in our culture to prioritize everything else other than our health and to think of our health as once I'm sick enough, I'll deal with it. But that is like completely the wrong mindset. Like, because you can't enjoy life, even with these normalized levels of pain and disease where you're constantly bloated, you have headaches all the time. Like it'll only get worse and worse and worse. So why are you living your life in this state of like fuzziness, brain fog, like exhaustion, you're not truly yourself, right? People are always like, well, I have to prioritize my family. Like I can't spend money on like my health or nutrition. Like I can't invest the time, this is happening, my work, my partner, my kids. Like, yes, but you're also going to get worse and worse. And you're already at a place where you're not really there. Like you're not there with yourself. You're not there with your family. You're not there with your kids. You're creating bad patterns for them because you don't know. And you're just repeating what's been done with you. Like not even just for yourself, but also just for yourself. Like fucking prioritize your health before you're like on your deathbed. And you don't have to live this life of constant pain and constantly trying to cover up symptoms like you've been told is normal, because all you have, it's like so simple and so fast to start healing. And then you'll have all the energy, natural energy, and actually feel good in your body and connected, and you can actually be happy within yourself. And when you're happy within yourself and healthy, you can be so much better for everyone else in your life, whether it's work or your kids or your family. So really like that prioritization, that switch, because there's never a good time to focus on yourself. There's always something. Like right now it's the holidays, right? And people are like, well, I have to focus on that. And then later it'll be like the new year. So your work will ramp up. And then you're like, oh, I don't have time for my health. I have to work or like whatever. And then you're like, oh, I'm going on vacation. Like, of course I'm going to drink and pig out. Like there's never a good time. There's literally, it's just going to be, you're going to be like 10 years down the line, sick as fuck, and be like, why didn't I do this 10 years ago? So that's like a big one. And the other thing is like not normalizing the pain, not believing that these Band-Aid solutions are the end all be all, not listening to this rhetoric around, we don't know the cause of disease, or like go to a specialist or take this medication, because it's just going to take you down a really dark path, mentally, emotionally, and physically.
Yeah.
And what you said, actually, I heard recently, it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. Like, that's fucking huge. Like, it's not your fault. You're in this culture, you're programmed this way. This is the reality, but it's your responsibility to get yourself and the people you love out of it. And that's what I see happening too, is like, once people commit to healing themselves, like joining my program, everyone around them benefits. Not only do they become better for themselves, but like they become better for the people around them, and they're able to give other people these tools. So like their kids don't have to go through the same process that they went through, or like their partners or their parents or whoever. Like, I have a girl who just finished the academy, and her dad is really sick. Her mom, both of her parents are sick, and she's like cooking food for them because she's like, now I know, because I know how that this made me feel so much better. I know what you need to eat to feel better. It's just like such a gift for the rest of your life, because it's a lifestyle change. It's a mindset change. It's not a quick fix or a diet.
So fucking good.
Yeah.
So fucking good. Thank you for all of that. So for anyone who's listening that does want to join your program, or like just wants to get all up in your world and learn more about this, where can they find you?
So I'm at Julia Otest on Instagram and on TikTok, and that's like my primary places. I also have a Facebook community, which, what is it called? Gut Healing for People with Chronic Illness, I think is what it's called. But it's a free community. You can join. I do weekly lives there with lots of information. And if you want to join my program, I am accepting new students right now. So definitely you can DM me on Instagram. That's probably the easiest way, and we can chat and make sure it's a good fit for you. But yeah, if anyone's interested, like the second you commit, that's the thing too. The hardest part is just making that commitment, as you, I think, experience right now, is like, you're so scared, and then you just commit, and then it's actually easy. And people don't know that until you experience it. Yeah.
Y'all, take it from me. You're listening to my podcast. I've been listening to everything that Julia has to say over the past few weeks of my life, and I feel radically better. And it's easier than you think it is, just like you said. It's like, once you start to actually get into feeling how much better you can feel, and like meeting your emotional needs, meeting yourself with what you actually need, as opposed to numbing yourself out with food and alcohol and all of the different things, like life gets to be even more beautiful. If you could imagine that that's a thing, like it gets to get even fucking better.
Yeah. Honestly, I've been having chills this whole time talking to you, our whole conversation, to like, because I know you've been experiencing exactly what I'm talking about, and it's so hard to explain. But as soon as someone experiences it, it just clicks. And I just have so many, like it feels so good to have this feedback and hear the impact that it's making in your life. Because it is like, you don't realize how much better life can be.
Yeah, truly don't, until you're on the other side of it. And this is like such an incredible way to get there. So thank you again for coming on to the show. Thank you for all of this wisdom. I know it's going to help so many people.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I'm so grateful to have these no bullshit talks with you. If you enjoyed today's episode or the podcast as a whole, please spread the love by leaving me a review on iTunes or sharing the podcast with others. This is how I will be able to spread more of these good vibes and be able to make more of an impact on the lives of others. And if you're not already part of all of the goodness and communities that I have to offer, check out the show notes. I have links to the different ways that I can support you on your manifestation journey and help you live a life full of more money, fulfillment, and freedom. But that is all for now. So big love and hugs, and I will chat with you soon, babe.